What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing? Welcome back in here to Rover Sports. I know I got a mirror in back of me, so it isn't the optimal setting maybe for a video or for a background, but again, with the green screen and things going on, I'm trying to get all of that figured out. Eventually, I have to release a film review. I have to go to the library. I have to watch Josh Allen against the Cowboys, and then I have to watch Drew Lock against the Chargers. So that will be coming out in a little while, but I wanted to just talk about a whole bunch of topics here with you guys, kind of like 15 minutes of conversation of topics and just kind of a big old podcast, just maybe like a 20-minute just to cover so much ground and get my opinion across in kind of key areas. So first we could start out, and we could start out at a lot of places. I wanted to start out first. I'm going to tackle the NFL topics. I'll tackle San Francisco. I fought in that game against the Ravens. It was in the rain. I thought that Garoppolo and the team played really hard. The Ravens this year are certainly one of the best teams in the NFL. I think it's pretty undisputed at this point. I was dead wrong on the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. I'll say that first and foremost. But to go in there, for the defense to play as well as it did, covering Lamar Jackson, giving up 17 points, the 4th and 2, you had a tipped pass. The Niners can take a lot of confidence from it. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk in San Francisco about the, playing for the tie against the Seattle Seahawks. And what Russell Wilson is doing is otherworldly. It's one of the most competitive MVP races that we have in the NFL between Lamar and Russell. It's going to come down to that last game. And I believe that the Niners have the ability this week to go out and win because Drew Brees hasn't been looking as good. The pass rush is going to heat up. And this week it comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle actually making plays in that fast surface in New Orleans. This is a huge game for Jimmy G. It's the biggest game for a 49ers fan since you can argue 49ers Giants. Or actually you can argue the Super Bowl or whatever in 2012 with Jim Harbaugh. So I believe the Niners can beat the New Orleans Saints this week. I really do. And I'll preview that game separately. But I think the Niners are still on a great path. And then that game up there in Seattle is turning out what's going to be an all-out war. Because even if Seattle loses another game, now the two are tied, so it's going to come down to Sunday Night Football, Week 17, and if the Niners win that game, I believe the San Francisco 49ers then are going to probably have a rematch of Seattle-San Francisco. In 2 weeks in the divisional round. I think the 49ers can do this, though. I think the 49ers can beat Seattle. It's going to come down to if they can run the football, their defense playing against Russell Wilson. I got to give Seattle credit. They're better. But the Niners, I'm sticking with it, are my Super Bowl pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to say that over the Patriots. 49ers beating Patriots. Now, what is a really interesting discussion is kind of the Kansas City Chiefs because with the New York Giants, I've watched teams, and I fought last year the Dallas Cowboys, and again, I apologize for still having this cold. Maybe eventually the cold will go away, but I always have sinus infections anyway. You guys who've watched the show know that about me. So the point is here about the New York Giants, or here and there, I'm covering my head. The New York Giants, when they won the Super Bowl, they got hot late in the year. And Steve Spagnuolo, I think, is a really good defensive coordinator. And the way that the Kansas City Chiefs shut down Derek Carr, the way that Honey Badger is playing freely in the scheme, the way that the guy Juan Thornwell from Virginia is playing, it might be Thornhill, the way that he's playing lately, I just think that I really do see the Kansas City Chiefs being a really dangerous team, and the Chiefs absolutely have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. I would actually maybe even take Kansas City over Ravens right now in my power rankings because Kansas City's coming into their own, and I think Kansas City can go to New England and win. And this is a great test. KC's playing great football right now. The Chiefs are that team that I think that people are sleeping on, that now with Patrick Mahomes, I think that this could be something where even though the Chiefs lost to the Titans, they've kind of, they lost to the Texans. They had that early season skid. They're a mature enough team to get it going and get it going late. And you just got to get hot at the right time. Andy Reid's had these teams that were dominant, would get to the playoffs and not play its best football. You got to be playing well late in the year. Mahomes is that special. Kansas City, I'd sprinkle a little bit of money down on Kansas City as a Super Bowl contender. I think it's a good time right now to invest in Kansas City being a Super Bowl contender because I think they have a better chance than Baltimore in the playoffs to be going to the Super Bowl. With Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the NFL, Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, that hire, it's already proven to be better than Bob Sutton. It really is. So everybody thinks KC's defense sucks. KC's defense is coming, and they're coming in a big way for Tom Brady this weekend. Let's talk about Drew Lock. I thought Drew Lock played really, really well in his first game out there. I saw a lot of things on tape that I like. As a starting quarterback in the NFL, you just have to function week to week. You have to be the guy week in and week out. You can't get too high or too low. There's going to be inconsistencies. I'm not saying Drew Lock is going to be Mahomes just yet, but I think that Drew Lock is certainly capable of being a quarterback that is a franchise guy that is going to be a quarterback for 10 or 12 years. And with that defense, I think Drew Lock can go to the Texans, and I think that the Broncos can win the game down there. I think it's going to be a one-possession kind of game down in Houston, Texas, especially after the win against the Patriots. So I believe that Drew Lock is the guy for the Denver Broncos. I'm excited to do a film review. He's quick in the pocket. He's mobile, but he has a God-given ability to release the ball quickly. I said at the time that I would have taken Drew Lock over Daniel Jones, that I liked both prospects in the draft, that I did like both guys. I was on record saying that. I got a little bit worried about Drew Lock and his ability to win games in college. I let that get to me a little bit, but I think Drew Lock is going to be a big-time quarterback in the NFL. And he just has a really quick release. He's very talented. He's accurate. He has velocity, quick release. How he can survey the field, that remains to be seen, but he's not a sitting duck back there like Joe Flacco. He's athletic enough to break contain. He's a big enough guy to play, and I think he has the personality that is infectious for the Denver Broncos and those characters. Let's talk a little bit about Buffalo. I think Buffalo and the Ravens will be a tremendous, tremendous football game. I think actually Buffalo has the pieces to really contain Lamar Jackson. It's not going to be a Baltimore blowout by any means. The Bills are going to end up beating the Ravens. I'm going to give you my preview on that. It's a perfect matchup because you have Tremaine Edmunds, and Tremaine Edmunds is like Fred Warner. He's such a fast linebacker. You have Ed Oliver playing his best football of the season, a Starlet Tuilele, and then you have guys like Jerry Hughes and guys on the outside. I just think that if the Ravens offensively are slowed down enough, I think that Josh Allen can hit enough plays that the Bills can win the dang football game, especially if it's going to be nasty weather. It's going to be cold up there in Buffalo. Pat Shurmur, Eli Manning, and Daniel Jones. I'm planning on trying to go to the game out here in Philadelphia on Monday Night Football. I think it's going to be a really fun game. If Eli Manning is the quarterback, it'll be a lot of fun, little farewell tour. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that the ownership would actually put on Pat Shurmur that he needs to play Eli Manning. I think that that's a conspiracy that we'll never know. I think it's dumb if that's the case. And the one guy who would hate it the most is Eli Manning, because Eli Manning is not up for those hokey things. And interestingly, Eli Manning's record is 116-116 overall as a starter. So he'll probably dip below 500 by a game or by a game or two, which people will hold against him in the Hall of Fame for his resume. But the thing I love about Eli, I don't think he cares about legacy or resume. I just think he loves football. He loves being around the team. And for Eli, the cool thing is if he gets to start, not only is it cool for Giants fans to see him play, but it's also cool, like, if he has a really good game, he can maybe prolong his career by being a backup quarterback somewhere else next year. And for Eli, who gives a crap, man? I mean, you only got one life to live. You shouldn't live life to please other people. And Eli Manning shouldn't have that kind of pride in saying, I'm not just going to be a backup for Mitchell Trubisky, or I'm not going to be a backup for Jared Goff, or I'm not just going to be a backup. If you love playing football enough, and you love being in the locker room enough, and you love traveling, now Eli said he wants to be a Giant for his whole life, which means that he's not going to be able to play next year if that's the case, because his cap hit is too huge. But as an Eli Man, as a guy who's loved everything that Eli Manning's done, one of my favorite athletes ever, I want to see him still play football next year if he'd like to do it. And this could be a very good tape to send to some teams to see if Eli Manning still has it. And Eli certainly has had the rest necessary to be good enough. Now, for Pat Shurmur, if ownership or for Pat Shurmur, if Eli Manning does well or if Eli sucks, it shouldn't make a difference. I think Shurmur needs to go. We've seen enough for Pat Shurmur that he deserves to be fired. The Green Bay game, the Chicago game, that was very winnable. Pat Shurmur has no defensive capabilities. We've gone over this. Something that's worth noting is that if Oregon loses to Utah, if Oregon beats Utah, LSU wins, and then his Baylor Bears beat Oklahoma, Matt Rule goes to the college football playoff. And if he goes to the college football playoff at Baylor and they're playing in the college football playoff, it's going to be a lot harder to coerce him out of Waco, Texas. But if Utah beats Oregon, I think then that Utah being over Baylor, I think Matt Rule will see that he's had the best success he can have at Baylor and still not make it to the 14 playoff. I think that will motivate him to want to come back and be a New York Giants coach. So if you're a New York Giants coach, Baylor getting to the college football playoff is not good for your chances to keep Matt Rule, because I think it incentivizes him at Baylor to want to be a head football coach at Baylor, which, again, would not mold well for Giants fans. So that's something to really keep an eye on. Lane Kiffin to Arkansas. I think Arkansas fans should love the hire. I think for Lane, if Auburn or Texas open up, I think that those are two jobs that are better. But Arkansas is a top 5 job for Lane Kiffin. I think it's better than Florida State, because at Florida State, if you don't win at Florida State, you're going to be known as a failure again. I think their fan base is very volatile. They don't have a lot of money. You're always going to be in the shadow of Bobby Bowden at Florida State. So I think Lane Kiffin to Arkansas is a really solid gig for Lane, because he can be a legend there. He can be a hero to the University of Arkansas. Now, it isn't a stepping stone job. So for Lane, he'd need to show that he has matured up and that Lane isn't going to be going just to Arkansas as a stepping stone. It's not a stepping stone job. He needs to be at Arkansas for his for a good 15 years if he really wants to make the move. And it would be very cool to see Lane go to the SEC and try to build a program and be a hero for Arkansas. It would work for both parties, because for Lane's legacy, Lane's always been a very impulsive guy that has taken the easy way out. And sticking at Arkansas and building a program for thick and thin for a desperate fan base, that would be a job that would not only be a redemption story for Lane, it would show the growth that Lane has had. And the upside at Arkansas is tremendous. If Lane goes to Florida State and even wins a national championship, and then he sucks in 2 years, There's no guarantee that Lane's going to be remembered as a hero. But Lane going to Arkansas to a very patient and loyal fan base, it makes a whole lot of sense. And it would show the full redemption story. That Lane isn't a spoiled brat. He isn't just daddy's son anymore. That he's really turned a corner in his life. And I think it would be a very intriguing decision for both parties. I think Matt Luke getting fired at Mississippi was actually not the right decision. I think it's very rare that I say that a coach deserves more time. But Matt Luke was a guy that was recruiting really well in the top 20. He was fixing a dumpster fire left by Hugh Freeze, led by the boosters like Barney, who was paying guys off, like Laquan Treadwell and, of course, Laramie Tunsil and Kim Dichie. So, for Mississippi, Matt Luke was doing a really good job, and he could have been like a Coach O type. I'm not saying he would have been Coach O, but again, he was building something there, and he hired really good assistants with Rich Rod and Mike McIntyre. The Egg Bowl gets a lot of people fired, and I think that the Mississippi AD overreacted to the Egg Bowl. Ross Bjork, the guy that hired Matt Luke, he went down and took a bigger gig at Texas A&M. Ross Bjork. So he went down to Texas A&M, took a bigger job down in College Station, Texas, down there at the prestigious University of Texas A&M University. Who is Mississippi going to get that's any better than Matt Luke? I have no earthly idea. Maybe Mike Norvell. That's pretty much the only guy that would be better than Matt Luke. Mississippi is way overinflated. It's not that good of a job. You play in the SEC West. I know you have Oxford, Mississippi there, but still, I don't think it's that good of a job. Arkansas is a worse job than Ole Miss, but at Arkansas, if you're Lane Kiffin and you build that thing up, I just think in Arkansas you can build a great culture, a great team up there. I really do. And I think Arkansas has the potential to be tremendous. I really do with Lane Kiffin there. I think it's more of a fit for Lane to go to Arkansas with a very stable athletic director and Hunter Yurchek. The basketball team at Arkansas with Eric Musselman is going to be tremendous. So I just think Arkansas is a more state. I actually am going to refute my comments. I think that Arkansas is a better job than Ole Miss because Arkansas has a much more stable president. It has a stable athletic director in Hunter Yurchek. So I believe Arkansas is a better job than Mississippi. I do. Now, for Cohen and the Mississippi State Bulldogs, for them keeping on the Joe Moorhead a couple of years, they got to look for other candidates because he isn't the guy. He's going to get fired midseason next year. He's awful as a coach at Mississippi State. He is not a cultural fit at all, and their team is just as undisciplined as Mississippi, and Matt Luke was doing a much better job with the hand he was dealt. First of all, Matt Luke had to follow up from Hugh Freeze's mess. Joe Moorhead had the advantages that Dan Mullen had, and now you see Mississippi State fans that would ever criticize Dan Mullen, just how much you miss Dan Mullen at Mississippi State. Clay Helton. Now, James Franklin, I can't believe James Franklin wouldn't want to go to USC. Maybe Penn State is the job for him long term. Now, it could be interesting if the Giants or if he wants to go NFL. I've heard that a couple of places. But for James Franklin, I think USC is the destination job. I think even though you're from Pennsylvania, you've achieved all you could at Penn State. Penn State fans don't even love you. I think that you should go to USC and build a dynasty. I think it would be perfect, and I think that James Franklin would actually build a power and a dynasty out in LA. I think he's the perfect personality for USC. He's great at speaking. Kids love him. I think Franklin is absolutely terrific to go to Southern Cal. And for the athletic director to stay patient with Helton, after giving it thought, it's not the worst thing because Clay isn't the long-term answer. And ironically, if USC goes 10-2 and there's a lot of momentum behind Helton next year, it might actually stagger the growth because I know that Clay Helton is not going to be the guy there long term. So I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Rover Sports. Again, 20 minutes just breaking down the college football vacancies, breaking down a whole lot of things. And listen, it's about 4 o'clock here on the East Coast. So right now, I should go to the library. I should look at Josh Allen, should look at Drew Lock, and put up those film reviews. And then for next week, I plan on doing Jimmy Garoppolo versus the New Orleans Saints as my feature film review. And I'm also going to do Drew Lock going to Houston, Texas to play a Texans defense. So those will be the two that I will do next week. So, guys, it was fun. Thank you all for watching the show. And take care, guys, and thank you all for paying attention to the show.